building PowerShell module on Azure DevOps with the help of pipelines. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to pretty much create your project, create your repo, how to push your code to your repo, and then actually how to create the pipeline for PowerShell so that it will take your code and then create a package. So let's have a look. Hi, welcome everyone. Coming here again with yet another PowerShell video, although today I'm branching out because we're going to actually use cloud, namely Azure DevOps, to build our PowerShell module. So yes, PowerShell is in the center, but in that case we'll be using other services to build PowerShell. And I pretty much prepared you a step-by-step how to do that, because I know from myself that this is quite intimidating, especially when you never really use pipelines, that, you know, however gloriously it sounds. For me, pipeline is literally just a glorified way of running your scripts, but that's just my view. And I will take you through the step by step. So we will be using the same module we've been using in the previous videos. I will put you links here just in case you want to have a look actually how we got to the point we can build the module. But now I want to automate that process. That is, I take the module, I take my code. The moment I check it into repository, I will then create a package out of it, yeah? So that it could be, for example, used with install module. And I will have some assumptions here, and these assumptions will be that you never use pipelines before, yeah? That you never use pipelines. Actually, in fact, you never use Azure DevOps, and possibly never use Git or use that on very limited space. Most of the stuff we'll be doing here will be happening on the web interface of Azure DevOps, or actually VS Code working with the YAML pipelines. My probably take on this will be quite opinionated, but I've been doing this for quite a time now, and actually what I've been doing, I've seen this used also on the community. Actually, I'm very strongly inspired by what community does. Therefore, whatever I will show you today will be a very easy go and apply to your own projects or apply to any other projects. So let's first of all have a look actually what do we need to start building on Azure DevOps. Okay, so what we're going to need for today's video, obviously we're going to need PowerShell. I'll be using PowerShell 7 for this, and we will be using PowerShell Module Builder. And I have a whole video about Module Builder, how to use it to build your module. Therefore, we will be building on top of that Module Builder module. And then we will need Git, because pretty much all the modern development happens on Git. I mean, modern development, it's the most popular, I would say. So if you go somewhere, you go to the Git. And since GitHub is the most popular, then Git is kind of the version control of choice. And we need to do a couple of things. If you're just going to install Git, you will need to configure user, configure email. And even if you don't do it, the moment when you try to push, Git will prompt you that, hey, I need that info. So even if you just install Git, at some point you will get reminded, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Then we obviously need VS Code. And for that, because we have a lovely, for two things really. One is that we have a dedicated pipelines plugin, which gives us IntelliSense. For plugin actually helps us to format it, because it's YAML files. We'll be writing pipelines, and YAML files kind of like Python. They are Pythonic, they need specific number of tabs. So therefore, having something what we tell you, oh, you need one more space there, or, you know, so your indentation doesn't make sense, it's helpful. And obviously PowerShell plugin. We'll be using NuGet. NuGet is what we use to create NuGet packages, and this is actually how PowerShell modules are distributed. This is also how C# library are distributed. I guess Microsoft invented that. I think they invented that, and therefore we just stick with it. 7-zip, I don't think is necessarily needed. It just makes it working nicer with it, because NuGet files, once you open it, is really a zip file with the different extension. And obviously we're going to need Azure DevOps project. So if you don't have it, go now to dev.azure.com and create your own project. It is free. You don't need to pay anything. It is free to a certain level of users and etc. For our work here is absolutely all you need. Free Azure DevOps project. And then you can probably asking why Azure DevOps, why not GitHub? For one, I am much more familiar with Azure DevOps, so it's much easier for me to take it. And actually, once I have that video, I will make one for GitHub. I would literally just make like a one-to-one video comparison or translate that. And for two, many companies actually were using Azure DevOps or TFS as it used to be called before. So actually you might be using this already. And pretty much for preparation, what you can do to just quickly get up to speed, you can, if you use Chocolate, you can just run this command, choco install, and this few commands. If you don't know what Chocolate is, it is a command line package manager for Windows, and it pretty much allows you to install things like that. You don't need to go to that website. And I will drop a link because I actually have a video about how to install and use Chocolate. It's really straightforward, and once you start using it, it's kind of like crack. You just can't stop. It's addictive. And then pretty much a couple of commands if you're just starting with Git for config. As you can see, this command here is one to say to who you are, and this is what email you coming from. So your Git server or Git repository can actually identify that you are this user or you are that user when you're creating your commits. Okay, so let's actually get on and create some project. Right, so this is my Azure DevOps organization. As you can see, I have just one project. This is the project I was using in preparation for that video, just to kind of do it step by step from basics. I won't be jumping straight on the deep sea for you. But as you can see, that's my login, that's where I go. So pretty much, I believe if you don't have a project yet, you'll be prompted to create one, then go ahead. If not, then we just create a new one. Obviously, if you have one already, you can ignore that step, but I just found when we're starting fresh from scratch, it's always much easier because there's no other things that somebody could configure. So we're going to create a new project, and since we have a whole project was called about PowerShell, I think I can just call it about PowerShell. So we have a consistency. I will make it public, so actually you can jump on and see that code later on when we finish, so you can actually have a comparison to files in case you want to reference or for any other reason. So it will be public. So let's create and give it a second. Right, so this is our brand new project, and pretty much what we have here, we have a overview where you can create some dashboards and can create wiki, the built-in one, or publish it. Code as the wikis. Actually, I can create my code in Git, then push it here. Boards is really cool thing where you can actually create your all things, all your bugs, all the things you want to do and track. This is literally a Kanban board on steroids. People often talking that this is the most powerful thing out of Azure DevOps, but we won't be using it today. It's not a video about that. We'll be revolving somewhere around repos, where we'll be creating our repo, our code. And then we'll be going to pipelines, where we create our pipeline. We will ignore test plans for now, and we'll go to artifacts, where actually we will publish the code, so that will be versioned and things like that. So what do? We go to our repo, because pretty much the workflow is as like, you have your repo, then on your repo you have a file that defines a pipeline. And that file usually have some sort of trigger. So for example, when your code is committed to main branch, then you go and you run this pipeline. Then your pipeline runs, and when everything runs successfully, you can run tests, and you can build your thing and do a bunch of things. But the effect, you want something called artifact. An artifact is nothing but a result of your pipeline. That's all it does, really. That's just fancy name. So then what we want to do, we want to store that artifact for a longer time, and therefore we want to publish it. And that's where artifacts come. So code gets published to really files, pipeline runs. If we have some tests, it runs the tests, and then it gets published to artifacts. So you can kind of see the journey here. And there are two ways. We can either pretty much create our repo locally, or we can straight away push it to DevOps. But I am personally fan of doing that way, initializing actually code on my server and then download it to my local machine. And the reason for that is it will sort out our credentials for us and things like that. Usually when I do this way, I don't need to think about entering my credentials because everything gets authenticated through Azure and things like that. So what I tend to do is initialize my main branch with README file, and I tend to pick here Visual Studio. It's not really necessary for Git Ignore to have for the Visual Studio, but I noticed when we start running tests and other things, there's already a lot of commands and files pre-configured. Therefore, I don't need to add much things to the Git Ignore. It's really your choice. You can leave it none and then add whatever you want yourself. Then we just hit initialize. So that we create an empty Git repo for me. So as you see, this is just standard, but we have already a Git Ignore file. And at this point, what I do, because I really wanna now at this point get on my machine, I go to this top right corner and I just press clone. And then I pick to clone it VS Code. That's where VS Code comes in the first place. So clone in VS Code. Yep, I want to open Visual Studio Code. It will bring it in my own, obviously, because I have two versions, one for my development and one for you. So what I do, I will just drop it somewhere and I will open it in my other one. So let's call it just AZ for now. And in AZ, I will put it there. So let's open. Okay, and that's my repo. But let's jump on. I will open this in actually my other code editor. Okay, and we're back. So obviously now VS Code is asking if I really trust it. Yes, I trust. I just created it. So I trust the authors. And that's our blank repository. So what we want for now, I will, because we already have a module, and that module was a sample module I was building in the previous modules, in the previous videos, KP info. So what I do, I just bring it here, because we don't really want to start creating new one. And if you're interested how it's done, then please refer to my other video, which link will be here. Okay, so here's the module. So I copied it across. And as you can see, we have pretty much what as I left it in the previous video. Yeah, so I have my install requirements, and we have my start module, and etc. We have my source, private, public, so everything as it was left on the previous video is there. But there's one thing I don't really want to be committed, and that's my output folder. Because the output folder is where I build it. That's the result of my build, and I don't really want this on my version control. So I can just quickly go to Git Ignore and just add it somewhere here. Okay, so I can just do something like that. Just punch it in, output /, and as we can see now, it is grayed out now. And if I go to my source control, the files from there will go. So let's have a look how different it is. 9 files, now we have 12 files because there are files from whatever build, and now they're gone. So what happens now? Because yeah, obviously source control. So at this point, as you can see, we're on the main branch, isn't it? And there's only one, we'll be working only on the one branch. So if you haven't used Git before, just a quick crash course, on Git you have a concept of branches. So you have your kind of chunk, and that's your main. And then you can, out of this chunk, you can create your own branches. And pretty much then when you create your branch, this is at the time as you took it from your chunk. It is exact copy. However, at this point, any changes you will make to your branches, they will not be affected on your main branch, on your chunk, until you merge them, until you create pull request. Therefore, it's kind of safe to, when you have your, let's say, working code, you just create your own, let's say, development branch, and you just work there until you're ready. You merge it back, and that's how it kind of works. But we won't go there at this point. At this point, we really want to commit that code, and we wanna push it back to our source repository. Yeah, so we will be having our actual code in the repository, because that's kind of where all the work happens. So when you create commit, and we can create commit by coming here. So I have all the files. And now whatever messages, whatever I'm commenting, yeah, and usually we have something like initial commit. So that's what we do, and then we press commit. And at this point, as you can see, it tells me I can create many commits. Commit is just at this very point at this time. So it's something I created, maybe a fixed bug, I changed something, I wanna kind of create this checkpoint. So that's where commits come into action. But they stay locally on your machine until you push them, or as it says here, as you sync changes. Okay, so at this point I just want to go and send them to the server. So let's just have a look. If I come here and I refresh, as you can see, there are no other files. They're just not here. So, and at this point I will sync my changes. So let's just give it a second, and we will see they were sent to DevOps. So if I refresh now, as you can see, all my files are there, and there's my initial commit and etc. And that will be on that version control forever until actually somebody come and delete, but actually Git is really unhappy for you to alter the history. Though yes, you can, but it's unhappy. Anyways, we have our code now. So obviously, what now? Now we want to create our pipeline, isn't it? We want to actually go and do something on the cloud, because yeah, storing code version control, cool, yeah, awesome. I can do it with OneDrive, although don't, but yes, you can if you want. And pretty much we can do it both ways. We can start from the web interface, or we can do it locally. And we will start from the web interface just to actually kind of give you a little bit of visualization. So if I go and click here, setup build, it will start help me to actually create pipeline. And that's kind of where my problem was coming with all of this building, because you have a lot of videos and tutorials how to build, you know, Java, C#, I guess Python and JavaScript. Actually, there are not many for PowerShell. So that's probably why it was a bit intimidating for me, but you know, we can solve everything. So don't worry, we will just go create a very simple one. And what this will do, it will create for us a very simple YAML file. I don't know what YAML stands for yet. Yet another management language, something like that probably. And I can see a file called Azure Pipelines.yml. YML is file format for the YAML files. As you can see, there's a basic step. So what it will do, it will pretty much trigger whenever we are on the main branch. So that's where we are now. It will use Ubuntu for this, because when you're on the cloud, you can just say to use Ubuntu, Windows, or Mac for it. They are images. So there are images prepared already by Microsoft for you to use them. And they have all the sorts of building tools and things like that. And the idea is when you build on the cloud, it always gives you a fresh new image. They're like if they were giving you a fresh new VM. So when you're building something on the cloud, and that's where I really like it, is you must make sure that if there are any specific requirement, libraries, dependencies, you must have on your pipelines. You must then somewhere include it. So you won't run in the situation like, oh, it runs on my machine. I don't know why it doesn't run on your machine. Yes. Why? Because we always start from fresh here. That's one of the benefits. And obviously it's in the cloud. So you don't need to worry about things like patching this, maintaining, and worry about that, isn't it? And then pretty much the way how it works, we have certain steps, or as we'll see later, tasks that pretty much tell it that what, you know, you go and you do this thing. So in that case, it's just simple outputting to the console hello world and another, but it will actually run on the cloud. So let's save this and run this. And yep, we can stick to the default pipeline. So let's let it do it. And now, if you go to the pipelines, it says that, oh, it's already failed. That's interesting. Why did it fail? It shouldn't fail when it's just creating. Ah, okay. I think because it's a new project, we need to... Yes, because it is a new public project. Microsoft did put in place something like you need to put like a request. I believe that they use that so people don't abuse it. So I need to fill that form. So yeah, I will output this. Let me just copy it. And I'll put here a bit bigger text in case you will, I don't know, not see it. But that's the link we need to use. And therefore I need to now drop them an email. With this, I need to fill out this form. So let me see. What is your name? Okay, I did fill out the form, although it needs to wait. So where the problem is, if you hit that problem, is if you go project settings and then you go parallel jobs. The problem is here, public projects, Microsoft hosted 0. So it looks like by default they don't allow you to do 3 parallel jobs for any reason. You can, however, do them on private project. So if you go for the private project, there's 3 parallel jobs. 1. So that means pretty much I can have 1 pipeline running at any time for my private project. So what I've done for now just to carry on with the video, is I change that project to private. So pretty much if you go to overview, you can change it at this point, private, public. So I flick that to private so I can carry on, and when Microsoft hopefully will respond that, yeah, okay, have it, then yes, you can do it. But anyways, once I'm done, I will make it public anyways, because really you are interested in the code, I guess, rather than the pipeline runs and etc. But yeah, so when I started, you've probably seen me running the pipeline. So let's try once again. I have now pipeline now. So if I click on it, I can run it. So let's go run pipeline, and from the branch main, we don't care about any other settings, run. And at this point, we can pretty much see that it started from, you know, when it started, from which commit, which repo, and that's pretty my one job. So if we see now, it pretty much starts on the cloud, yeah? So you can see some details, what we have about the agent and various other things. Then pretty much checks out, so that means it downloads my Git code to the agent, runs this single script as we can see, hello world, run another script, and then it checks out back and finishes the job. It's done. So in other words, that's how my DevOps works. So what we really want to now, we want to edit it, and there are two ways. One is if we go on the pipelines, I can come here, edit, and I can edit that pipeline, and I have also help here. So this is the kind of new way of doing things through the YAML files. Not sure if we can still, no, there was also a previous way of doing them through like a GUI wizard, like a visual, but it is being called classic, and therefore I believe it's been deprecated. I believe I found at some point certain tasks that were available on the YAML and not on GUI. Therefore, we won't really be focusing on GUI, we'll be focusing on editing the YAML file. But okay, so now if we come back to the repo, we can see that the new file is here. Yeah, I have Azure Pipelines.yaml on my Git server. So really what I want to do is come back here to my code. Yeah, we don't need this saved. And at this point, see there's one incoming request. So that will be one new commit. So I can just press it. And at this point, I should see my Azure Pipelines. And if I click on it, we have my Azure Pipelines file, the same like I had it on the server. And at this point, I really would like to have to install the extension for Azure Pipelines that gives us the IntelliSense. So if you haven't done it already, just come here and no PowerShell, Pipelines. Azure Pipelines. So that's the one we want to install by Microsoft. So it will help us greatly in developing an Azure pipeline. Okay, it's there. So now we should have some sort of IntelliSense. And we can sign in. Let's see, I won't sign in for now. I just want some basic setup. I can delete the comments from the top and we can start with it. So I think we will for now leave this bit and we will build on Ubuntu just for fun. We can change it to Windows latest if you want. I will stick to Linux just to, well, PowerShell has been cross-platform for some time, and I found that Linux images works faster than Windows for some reason, so I will just stick to it. So what we have now, if we remember, we have pretty much our source folder with my source files, yep, with my functions, my private functions, public functions, my module manifest, and then I had a module builder that will go and build modules. So if I run this and I come to my output, I have just built module. So I think it will kind of make sense to actually use the same thing to actually build on DevOps. Yeah? So tell pipeline, you go and you build this module. So, and you will need to trust me here a little bit with what I do, because there's a lot of things you can do in DevOps, and we could spend probably another few hours just going through all these tasks and options. And so I will tell you, trust me in this, and if you're interested in any more, please go and either ask questions or explore the documentation from it. I learned a lot of this stuff from learning. So for now, we don't really want this built into tasks. We get rid of them. And what we do in our steps, obviously my first step for now will be to build a task. And pretty much task is each step really. Yeah, they are called steps, but actually it's tasks. So it's bunch of steps will be, well, a bunch of tasks will be my steps. So we have a task. One of the tasks is called PowerShell add 2. Yeah, so there is pretty much access the version 1, version 2. And I believe the main difference between these two is that version 1 is only Windows PowerShell, version 2 is cross-platform PowerShell. So you can actually tell it to use Windows PowerShell core, or new PowerShell. So we want to give it some display name, and display name will be what we see on the Azure DevOps, on the GUI. So we want to really run module builder or build module, whatever floats your boat. Name. This is kind of internal name. So if at any point I want to reference this step, so I can, for example, say if this step was successful, then do this or do that. You can have if logic, you can have branching on the pipelines. So we just give it here simple module builder. And one tip that at some point wasted few hours of my life, you always must give it different names to the tasks, to the jobs, to anything you do. They must have unique names, because at some point I had a bug. I don't know if it's bug, but pretty much the pipeline was just constantly on the waiting state. It never restarted, and the reason for this was I had two things named the same, I think name and task or something like that, and it just got confused and it was just waiting. The moment I changed that, it started to run. So always give them unique names, always. And then pretty much once you have my task, we have something called inputs. And inputs is really kind of how you configure the actual task. So in that case, I want to tell it to use a new PowerShell. So pwsh tells it to use cross-platform PowerShell, and if it's false, then it's pretty much Windows PowerShell. So let's say if I would be on Windows machine, that would kind of make a big difference, yeah? Windows PowerShell, cross-platform PowerShell. And my target type for this will be a file path, because we can either have a inline, that means I can actually punch in my script here, like we see just now. The default one was doing this echo word and things like that. They were obviously inline, but in that case, I want to have a file path. And now we want a file path, obviously, where? And for pipelines, it always defaults to the root of your Git. But what I tend to do is to actually, DevOps has quite a few built-in variables, and you can create your own variables. But so this is the way how it actually use a variable, yeah, $sign and then parentheses. In that case, I want to have build.sources directory. So pretty much it tells you start from the root. That's literally where I am, yeah. Now with my Git, that's what it says. Sources directory, and then I want to run my start module build. Module build ps1. Let's scroll down a little. So we now have my build, and do I have any arguments? We have version, but I guess we don't care about this at this point about version. Okay, so in that case, it just should run my PowerShell with default version, with my build module builder with different versions. So let's try and add. And we need to commit it, yeah? So that's kind of the pattern. You make changes to your code, you commit the code, you push your code. And so add module builder to pipeline. Run, and we wait now for the pipeline to run. So because I did set up trigger to main, as you see, this is my main branch. So anytime I push something to that branch, it should fire my pipeline. So let's wait. See, it's running now. Let's click on it. Let's go to my job. Oh, and it failed. Why? Well, bad day, isn't it? It's second failure today. Build module. And I did the ability to do that, really. So just you know why it happens. And often when working with pipeline, because you don't have direct access to these cloud machines, there will be failures, and this is normal. Sometimes I will commit something 10-15 times just to figure out how to do the pipeline. So this is okay, don't get discouraged. So what we have, can run because the following modules that are specified by the requires statements of the script are missing. Module builder. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. As I told you, this is always a brand new VM machine. It doesn't have this module, it can't have all the modules. So we need to, one way or another, deliver it to machine. So obviously, because that machine is running the cloud and they have access to the PowerShell gallery, we can actually go and try to go and install the module on itself on your machine. Yeah, and again, this all happens on Linux. Yeah, we are on the, you can see here really that we have root, home, VSTS, blah blah blah. Work to actually, or actually this is better case. We're on Linux. Yeah, I develop on Windows, push it to Linux. Kind of cool. So what we really need, we have this one. Yeah, install modules for install module builder. So that's my module builder. So I will point it to run this script. What I tend to do, and this is my personal opinion, is that if I can have something in scripts rather than kind of using pre-configured tasks like, you know, vendor log tasks, I will opt into my own scripts, because then if at any point I need to move my code anywhere else to the product, I just take my scripts, I take my code, I own it. And I can do migrate very easy and quickly. Yeah? Then I just need to kind of maybe just change the YAML file. It's working. But if I was to store all these functions on the actually vendors logged in prepared files or config files, then I'm kind of done, because then I want to move. They kind of own all my code. I need to rewrite my code, if you see my point. So that's why I favor having my own scripts, my own code. It might be taking longer to develop, but in the long term, it gives you much more freedom to do whatever you want with it. So what we need to do? So because we want to build, we really want to add the task before this one to install the module. So let's try. So obviously it's this. Display name is, we can just call it install modules, because maybe at some point we'll add more to this file. I don't know. Do I really care about name? Probably. Also, Azure Pipelines by default, if something in your script fails, it will just fail the whole pipeline. So you don't really need to worry about things like if that was successful or not. It just assumes things must be successful. You can overwrite it if you want, but pretty much by default, it just is kind of hard fail. Do I care about this? Give it an internal name? I don't know, I can do install modules. Now my inputs will be EWSH, yep, it's true, target, and I get that interesting if I do control space, in case you wonder. So target space, control space, I have my file path, and then file path will be again build.sources directory / install requirements, if I can spell it correctly. Ah, come on, I'm rushing now. Okay, so yet another one. So, you know, git commit push, we go install modules. Okay, and let's have a look. So it's still sending. Okay, it went through. Pipelines about PowerShell. My tasks. So let's wait for it. You see, it's added another step. Is install module. So installing module builder. So this comes. Actually, wait, let's wait. Okay, install it. Build module. So build it. Wow, you see my version 1. So that's my, if you remember, that's the name of my module. That's the function names. So build it. But where is it? Yeah, where's my code? You build it, where's my code? Well, the problem is it's nowhere, because it's pipeline, it's in the cloud, and it didn't have it anywhere to be saved. So in other words, although I did build it, I need to PowerShell to kind of take this and you save this. Yeah, you need to upload it somewhere. I need to store it for me somewhere. Anyway, if I don't, you just kind of, yeah, I'm done. Everything gets destroyed. So we need to do that one more step. That is to go and send it somewhere to save it. So let's do it now. Okay, so let's just catch up where we are. If I delete my output folder, so pretty much we got to the point where we build module, we have module in that folder output, and that's where my files are. So what I really want to do at this point is to take a snapshot or, take a copy of this so that it is available after the module has been built. So how do we do that? We come back to our pipeline files, and we want to add yet another task. Yeah, these files can get pretty long at some point. We go. Oh, you see, that's why VS Code is good. I'm in the middle of it and it tells me bad indentation. Yeah, I need to be at this point. So I want to add task, and this one is called upload. No, it's not far. Artifact, publish. I want to publish artifacts. That's how it's called. Publish artifacts at 1. Okay, so we want a display name. Yeah, publish artifact. We can give it a name, the same, publish artifact. Now what inputs? Okay, what inputs do we have in here? Artifact name, we can give it any name we want. I don't know, it can be module, it can be drop, it can be blah, it can be anything you want. And we want have to publish. So in that case, we yet again start with build.sources directory. This could be really some variable with shorter name, but we're not there yet. And we wanna go with the folder output, isn't it? So that's what my code is. So let's see what happens with it now. Now, if you are already bored with doing source control, VS Code has certain shortcuts you can do, and this is if you do Ctrl-Shift-E, you have this kind of drop down with all the options here. So you can at this point tell it to go with Git, as you can see, commit, and my message commit is publish module, enter, and I can do at this point send it. I can do git push. That's what we do now. Pressing this button will push the code, so I can just do that one. If you are, if you don't want to use this thing, you can use this. You can use that shortcuts, or you can obviously use the built-in Git command line at this point. Anyways, how's the pipeline looking now? Okay, so you see, every run, it will kind of repeat itself. There is a way to cache modules and etc. to speed it up, or what actually I've been doing, I've been checking in module builder with my other code, so I didn't really install it, but let's leave it as it is now. So publish artifact was successful. It looks like it found some 6 kilobytes of it, and we have 3 files. Cool. So where's the code? So the code for now will be only available on my latest pipeline run. So you see here, once again, pipelines, name of the pipeline, last run of my pipeline, and that's where my module is. Module, info, that's where file is. At this point I can go and download it. And this is cool, this is fine. The problem is, by default, I believe it will keep it for either a month here or latest 3 releases, something like that. Actually, yeah, as we can see. So it's not really like a long-term version. So it's great when you are, for example, have multiple branches and you are not on the main one and you want to build. So you can build on the other branch or something what is not kind of ready, seeing if it's working. You can actually come here and use it. What we really want is to come here to the artifacts. So we can actually, on things stored here must be first of all have a unique version for 1, and for 2 that will be stored kind of permanently. And that's where you can actually come with other applications to pull it down and download, etc. But at least you have a you have a permanent versions of these modules, of these files. Okay, so we could leave it at this point, but I don't think it's perfect. So we need to make it obviously a bit more complicated, because I wouldn't be myself if I wouldn't have complicated something that is already easy. So let's see. And to create these artifacts, we need NuGet. So with NuGet, we need to slightly change it. So what we really need, yeah. So pretty much we have a create NuGet. So that's the file we have in here. That's the link we have. And somewhere there's a file that we need to take and use as the package. So we're creating something called Nuspec file. And I will just, yeah. So what we can do, don't think you're much interested in me how to edit it. So what I do, I literally took this file and then butchered it out and left what I need. So let me copy paste what I have now, and I can run you through the changes. So we have as you can see now, in my source directory, I created kpinfo.nuspec file. So this is literally an XML file that kind of describes what NuGet file will be about. And in that file, pretty much, I remove some properties from the original one, and I just slightly amended what's needed there to kind of bare minimum. So as you have, stays the same, but in metadata we have ID, and ID is important because that's actually how it will appear on your NuGet feed, on your artifacts, and that's how kind of when you come and install module, the module will be identified that yep, this is the one module or another. So ID is kind of unique and important. Version, so what is the current version of the package? So that version should be really the same like the module manifest. And if you can think of it, changing two things at the same time is annoying. So yes, we'll get it scripted, so automatically at least update it. There is a way to auto increment version, but I will not show this on this video because I think we're taking anyways a lot of things to in one video. It will be, I think, the longest I recorded, just looking at the time now. We can also put it to a project URL where it is, a license, very quiet, some standard release notes, description of it, copyright, and tags. So as you can see, that's all. So there were, if you look on the original one, there were others, like for example, there were some files or some dependencies, yeah? So they got ripped off. So I think the best will be easiest for you. Either take the original one from the site and just modify it to your needs, or just take mine and modify to your needs. But definitely need to keep ID different if you want to make it unique on your own repository. So this is one part. So what should happen now? If I go to my source directory now, so actually what else? Because we build from the output, isn't it? So at this point, we need to modify the module builder to use and actually also copy the Nuspec file. So let's see. Let's make sure it doesn't happen yet. No, it doesn't happen. We need to explicitly tell it. So, comma. And at this point, we go with script root. I always specify my entry point, so it's common everywhere. So I don't have surprise that suddenly my path is somewhere else where I expect and things won't work. At least at this point, pre-script root is where, in relation to where my build script is. So it is source, and this is info.nuspec. So let's see if that worked. Run. Awesome. So if you see now in output, I have my Nuspec file. So it takes it from the source. At this point, what I can do, I can go to output, my folder. So there should be my Nuspec file. Yeah, that one doesn't help now, does it? Yep, there's my Nuspec file. So I can go NuGet back, or do I need to still point it? Ah, no, it did that. So if I now come here, see, there's my file, Nuspec file with version. specify here. So if I bump the version here, it will create another one, 002. But now we have problem because my module has a different one. I just wanted to show you how this gets generated. So if I now open this in File Explorer, and I go and I do open this with 7-zip, we can see there's my package, there are my files. That's literally what was in my output, yeah? There are other files because that's how NuGet works, but pretty much at this point this file will be ready to be downloaded with install module if you were using it. So this works. I mean, this is obviously one part of the equation, because there's another one, and as you might be guessing now because we have this working here locally, we need to kind of amend the install module building, yeah? Because at this point I'm only building module, and at this point I really need to also create a NuGet file. So I think at this point it will make sense to actually create a specific separate file. If we look on the Azure Pipelines way, there's actually NuGet tasks. Yes, I can actually do NuGet command, but I tell you actually to pack it, but because I can very easily for the command line, we will fall back to command line because that gives me more control. So I guess if we do new file on the root of my repo called start NuGet build, that probably makes sense, .ps1. And I know that, well, that we will need to version it. So we go with the version parameter. So I just specify it. If I say nothing, I want a version 100. For versioning, you might be wondering why. It's called semantic versioning. It's pretty much major, minor, and patch. So how does it work? Major means you increment it when you are making breaking changes, yeah? Breaking changes will be not compatible with previous version, you bump the major version. Minor version, you increment when you bring new features. Yeah, there's something works, now you have a new commandlet, new function, new parameter. This is it. Patch version is for patching. So when you're fixing bugs effectively. So that's kind of how you establish the version number. So what we need? We pretty much need to grab a command of NuGet. Yeah, we need pretty much tell PowerShell to use it. So what we do my command equals get command name is NuGet and command type is application. So that should grab me. Let me try F8 command, and we have NuGet. And what really makes sense here, especially when you build on Linux, when you have multiple versions of the application, that can be an array. So we just really want to pick the one. We could probably implement some logic to make it pick the latest version or something like that, but don't worry about this. Just do this one. So what we do, we tell PowerShell to execute this file, and that's the ampersand. Simple test it actually go execute the file. So that will be my command, and the first entry you find, we wanna pack, as we just done, and at this point we, I don't know where that came from, and now we want script root, and then we go output. Notice I do /s because we will be building on Linux. So, and Linux is /s, it cares about that. And also, if you also stick to building Linux like I do, it is case sensitive. So cases must match. Despite being a good practice. kp-info.nuspec. So this is 1 bit. And we also want add to output directory. Okay, this is already getting wide. So tell you what, I just do it with new lines and then we just glue them together after all. At least that'll be a bit easier for you to read. So output directory is script root again, and we can do the same output, but we can point it to, say, NuGet. So special folder where this file will land, and you'll see in a minute why. And then the final one will be version, which will come from my parameter here. Cool. We have NuGet, version, yeah. Why is it squiggly reds? Ah, obviously, because this is, yeah. So now this must be on one line. So this is one part. So now if I run this, run, and now I'm going to output, I should have my NuGet and my version 1, which is specified here. Nice. So this is one part. What else do we need to change? Yes, now we need to tell pipeline to build the NuGet and to publish it. Now it needs to publish the NuGet somewhere. So we need something called a NuGet repository, and this will be really now coming to the artifacts part of the NuGets. So what we do, we have my artifacts, and I go here and create feed. Now it depends to you how you want to specify who can see it, either everyone in AD or members of this project, it's up to you. But we can probably call it PS module or modules, something like that. Yeah, so PowerShell modules. And now this one is whether you allow people to add things from other modules. PowerShell, not sure if I think they added PowerShell Gallery a few months ago. Whether it's really your choice, I usually switch it off. At least to this point, I always switch it off. And yeah, scope, project, organization is up to you who is supposed to be visible, who's supposed to see it. Create. Okay, so I created it for my other video. So let's call it PS module now. Okay, so that's my feed. Obviously it's empty. I didn't publish anything. That's coming next. So what do we do now? In my pipeline, I need to make a few amendments. Because I'll be passing a module, a version number, yeah, because we need to sort of versioning as well. Because obviously I can keep coming back and changing both files at the same time. This is not really ideal. I should really come and change version in one file and change version in another. I should have one entry point. Ideally, it will be fully automated, but we're not going that way yet. So let's do versioning now. Since both the scripts for module builder take version parameter, and I specify here, and my NuGet build also takes version parameter, I can really use pipeline at this point to deliver the variable parameter for version. So what I do at this point, I come here and at the top, before the steps, I specify variables. And at this point, I can create my own variables. So obviously mine will be at this point version. And because we're building version 0.001, I will just call it 001. So whenever I'll be bumping the version, I will come here and change it to the pipeline. It's not ideal, but also not terribly wrong. So obviously I have version here, and now we need to tell pipeline to go and run my script with this version. So what we have a build module. So at this point, I like to come here and add arguments. Yep, so that's how I can pass in arguments. So that will be version is my variable that I just set, version. And I need to now also actually try to go and build the NuGet file. So let's try to do this. So again, actually, because we're on YAML, I could possibly copy this now, don't I? So let's try, where's my start? So that will be, the only difference will be just different file and names. Oh yeah, so this is the joys of working with YAML. You try to copy and then it copies and does some weird with it to your indentation. So we can bring it back. Okay, so this one doesn't work, and now I want to increment this one. And is it happy? Why you not? Ah, because I'm still in the wrong indentation. So I can go back by doing Shift Tab, remove the indentation from all of them. Tab, forward, Shift Tab, backwards. Okay, so build NuGet. Build NuGet. So that will be start NuGet build. So at this point, it should create my NuGet in the output /NuGet. So my output will, so it will be including my output. I will have my NuGet file and my module, but at this point I would like to actually publish the NuGet package to the artifacts. And for this, we're going to use the actually built-in one, NuGet command. And the reason for this one is it will automatically authenticate the VM to the NuGet feed, so I don't need to do that. There is actually available, I think it's called there's actually available a key, an API key within the DevOps. I can actually just tell you to use it and authenticate, but because this task is only really for this very specific case, I think it makes sense to actually keep it only in the YAML rather than script PS1 file. So display name, publish to NuGet, and the name, publish NuGet, and there's I think command. Condition, Okay, so we need to go inputs. Command is publish. Check. Command is actually push. And then we want packages to push. We need to actually point it to our builds directory. So that will be build.sources directory, output, NuGet, and I can do something like that. asterisk.nu pkj, because obviously the name of the file will be changing with the versioning number. We could bake in that that logic here, but since there will be only one NuGet file, I think we can just grab anything what's there, because there will be only one. I know it because I control it to this point. And we need to tell it actually to which feed, because we can have multiple feeds, and maybe you actually want to go and publish it to some other feed out of our organization. So in that case, there will be about PowerShell /ps module. Okay, that will be it. So let's just review what we've done, because there was quite a few steps. We added arguments so that we can, first of all, we created the variable for the version. Then we've added argument to build module to add the version. We added the step to build the NuGet file, So we start NuGet build with the file. And then at the end, we tell it actually to go and publish it to NuGet feed. Now, let's see if I didn't make any typos and things like that. So git commit, nice thing about Ctrl+Shift+P is it remembers the last commands you used. So you can very quickly move. So comment publish to NuGet feed. And now we can push it, and let's have a look now about the pipeline. Okay, so if we go there, build NuGet, so we can see it built the file with this name, which is looking good, and it's in our directory. So it took the parameters. Publish artifact. So that will be obviously more, because now it takes everything from the output. So NuGet and the NuGet file. And now this is actual publishing. So you can see it has some weird output, but effectively tells us here that that's where it goes. So if I now come to artifacts, see, there's my KP info. That's my package. It has this some sort of description. There's even a home page to it. And it has my tags, they're available. PS module, oh yeah, I didn't tell you that. PS module is mandatory, because when you go install module, that I think it runs filter, and it looks for the specific tag. It must be there, otherwise it won't get recognized. So at this point, it could be downloaded and used. So now, about versioning and artifacts, if I now want change, bump the version number, and I just change something, I don't know, I come here, I do version history. So I call it very first release. Yep, so I won't actually bump the version. It will be still 001. It will fail. Update readme. So now let's run it and let's see what will happen now, since I have the same version. Oops. Yeah, as you can see, it failed. And someone should say that, yeah, exactly, there is already such version. Therefore, it won't allow you to push another, yeah? They are immutable. You cannot get rid of them. You cannot override them. Even if you delete the file, it will still not allow you to repush the version. There's only one version. You have one shot. So just for sake of argument, let's bump it to, let's say, 002. Bump version. Oh. So you can see it is happy. And in the artifacts, we now have version 2. If I click on it, I can actually have a go and check when the versions are. So they will stay here forever until you destroy your project. So that's kind of cool, because you can always, roll back, see what changed. Obviously, everything we were changing, I can pick any file. So for example, yeah, that one was changed the most. But if I go history, I can check every change that was there. So it's on the Git. So we have it. I can check what's been going on with every version. Yeah, that's kind of how you build PowerShell module. Go it. Now, the only problem with having this here is that on the private feed, yeah, so that is, in other words, the one that you need to punch in credentials on, is that when you want to use PowerShell for it, so you come and you add your, PS repository. Yeah, when you come and do register PS repository with your credentials, it will then ask you every time for that credentials when you come back and you search for modules when you try to update modules. It's really annoying, and I don't think that's the best way. And this is pretty much by this module. Yeah, it's pretty much down to the PowerShell get module that handles this that way, not the other. And we are currently on version 2.2.5, and in developing is version 3, and version 3 is supposed to fix that. But until that one, it's not really the best to really use the main to install that way from the private repository, because you will be just asked for credentials every single time. So I cannot really give it to users. So the way I found a workaround for this is to actually have a local SMB share, because you can do it with NuGet. You can just have it on local SMB share that is, public to your users in your company, and then just publish your modules there. And that way they can access it because they don't need to authenticate anywhere. But again, that's a workaround that will go away at some point. I don't know when. Whenever PowerShell get version 3 will get released. If you'd like to see actually how to set up your local NuGet repository, let me know in comments. But for now, I think we can wrap up. Whew, that was quite a long one, wasn't it? I think that's the longest video I've done, but I said to you at some point that actually I'm gonna to show you how to build PowerShell DevOps. And I finally got myself to actually do it. So as you can see, this is very basic what we done, yeah? I wanted you to have a complete pipeline, yeah? So actually you don't only have it just builds and then you need to manually download it, or worry about versioning. At least it does the whole thing for you, but there's much more we can do, because we can obviously add tests, we can add logic that, let's say, if you let's say don't commit to main, it will only build it for you and test it, actually won't release it to artifacts, and then when you merge to main, actually we do it. We can add some kind of protection of the branch that you can only, for example, that the code must be reviewed by other person, and let's say that you must actually pass your tests before you can even be allowed to merge it. So there's a lot more we can do, but I'm not sure if you're interested, so I will appreciate some sort of feedback about that. I will certainly do at some point the GitHub equivalent of this, because I understand GitHub is much more popular tool than Azure DevOps, or maybe not much, I don't know if it's much popular, but it's definitely gaining traction. So that will come, but for now, at least you can, take your code, build it with Module Builder, and have it running on Azure. And don't worry about how it's actually, what runs, because you effectively, what you gain in here is that you can just commit your code, and then it gets built. And obviously, as you mature, as you develop in this, you will throw some tests to it with, tester and others. So actually, you will validate actually code is true. It's actually true. It's actually working. It's valid PowerShell code. It's valid your logic you wanna have there. So you can kind of add more tests and more gates, so that before actually gets released, you're there. And that's kind of this part of this DevOps journey, yeah? Continuous improvement and then automation and testing and stuff like that. But for now, well, hopefully you find this useful, and tell me if there's anything else you'd like me to make video about. For now, have a great day. See ya.